Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating yet chilling topic, the top 10 mustaches that have had a harsh impact on modern history. From ancient rulers to contemporary despots, we'll explore why so many tyrants have chosen to sport a mustache, and how these facial hairstyles became synonymous with tyranny and despotism. Join us as we unravel the stories behind these notorious leaders and their infamous mustaches, starting from the first barbarian ruler of Italy, Odoacer, all the way to Alexander Lukashenko, the current president of Belarus. Buckle up for a journey through history's darkest chapters, one mustache at a time. Even though the beard has been portrayed throughout history as a symbol of manhood and wisdom, the mustache is the one thing that most accurately conveys the concepts of tyranny and despotism. Beginning with Odoacer, 433–493 AD, the first barbarian ruler of Italy, and continuing all the way up to Alexander Lukashenko, the current president of Belarus, dictators all over the world have felt the impulse to wear a MO, even though the reasons behind this behavior are not quite clear. The answer to the question, why do almost all tyrants grow a mustache, is still a mystery. However, the following is a list of the most influential mustachioed dictators in the history of modern times. Number 10. Alexander Lukashenko. Born on the 30th of August in 1954, Alexander Lukashenko Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko, also known simply as Alexander Lukashenko, is the current president of Belarus and the last tyrant in Europe on the continent. Beginning on July 20th, 1994, he was democratically elected by the populace, which marked the beginning of his reign. But he never again stepped down from his position as president. Lukashenko is the least cruel dictator on our list, even though he exhibits evident characteristics of tyranny, such as a passion for his personality cult. Number 9. Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame was born on October 28, 1957. Paul Kagame is the current president of the Republic of Rwanda. He rose to power as the head of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, which was the primary force that put an end to the Rwandan genocide, which was a well-known mass massacre of around 800,000 people. However, in June of 2006, the International Federation of Human Rights and Human Rights Watch described what they referred to as serious violations of international humanitarian law committed by the Rwanda Patriotic Army and its leader, Paul Kagame. This was despite the fact that Kagame's regime has been frequently praised for its contribution to the end of the crisis in Rwanda. It has been reported by The Economist that Kagame's dictatorship is mercilessly dealing with any individual who poses even the tiniest political threat to the regime. There have been allegations that Kagame has employed stringent anti-hate speech legislation in order to suppress criticism. It would appear that President Paul Kagame and his government have never acknowledged the validity of the idea that the press need to be allowed genuine freedom. Number 8. Augusto Pinochet. Augusto Pinochet was born on November 25, 1915, and passed away on December 10, 2006. President of Chile from 1973 until 1990, Augusto Pinochet was a general in the Chilean army and a dictator. Following the collapse of the socialist government that Salvador Allende, the elected president of Chile, had established, his rule came into being in 1973. With only 1 month having passed since Allende had appointed him to the position of General Chief of Staff of the Army, he took part in the coup. Even though Pinochet's administration was responsible for a significant number of economic reforms, including the stabilization of the currency, the reduction of tariffs, the opening of Chile's markets to international trade, the restriction of labor unions, the privatization of Social Security, and the privatization of hundreds of state-controlled industries, the human rights record of the government was shockingly poor. According to several official studies and investigations, the Pinochet administration carried out harsh measures against its political opponents. These tactics included the execution of around 1,000 to 3,000 persons, the imprisonment of up to 80,000 people, and the torturing of up to 30,000 people, including women and children. In response to the question of what exactly is wrong with democracy, Pinochet stated that sometimes you need to torture, murder, and rape people until they stop having the wrong economic ideas. Number 7. Rafael Trujillo. From 1930 until his assassination in 1961, Rafael Trujillo governed as the dictator of the Dominican Republic. During this time, the country was subjected to a period of crackdowns and genocide that is still considered to be among the worst in the history of the Americas. Additionally, he established a classic personality cult, as evidenced by the plethora of monuments dedicated to Trujillo during his administration. More than 50,000 individuals are believed to have perished as a direct result of Trujillo's autocratic regime, according to estimates. During the month of October 1937, he was the mastermind behind the infamous Parsley Massacre, which was a government-sponsored genocide that involved the death of Haitian families that were residing on the borderlands with Haiti during the massacre. As a consequence of the violence, approximately 20,000 Haitian citizens of Haitian ethnicity were killed over the course of approximately 5 days. Number 6. Saddam Hussein. 26th of April 1937 to 30th of December 2006. During his time as a member of the Revolutionary Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein was a prominent figure. A significant part of the 17th of July revolution, which took place in 1968 and resulted in the party seizing control of the Iraqi monarchy, was played by him. In spite of the fact that Saddam had been the de facto leader of Iraq for a number of years previous to 1979, he did not officially ascend to power until 1979. He is most well known for starting the longest conventional war of the 20th century, which was the Iran-Iraq War, also known as the First Gulf War, which lasted from 1980 to 1988. Additionally, he is renowned for fighting against the coalition that was commanded by the United States and the United Kingdom during the Second Gulf War. According to the New York Times, Saddam Hussein was responsible for the indirect murder of as many as 1 million of his own people, with poison gas being used in many of the cases. He also imprisoned, injured, and tortured a large number of other people. His invasion of Iran without any provocation is thought to have resulted in the deaths of an additional 1 million people. Number 5. Muammar Gaddafi. The 20th of October 2011 until June 1942. A political theorist, Muammar Gaddafi was the absolute leader of Libya from 1969 until 2011. He ruled from that year until 2011. He is a proponent of the Third Universal Theory, which is a form of government that was proposed in the early 1970s. This theory is a form of government that rejects modern liberal representative democracy and capitalism in favor of a type of direct democracy that is supervised by the government and that permits direct political participation from all adult citizens. The theory proposes that the public ownership of book publishers, newspapers, television stations, and radio stations should serve as the foundation for the foundation of freedom of speech. The idea argues that private ownership of these institutions would be incompatible with democratic principles. Although Gaddafi is shown as a ruthless tyrant who is accused of raping schoolgirls, executing political opponents, and paying mercenaries to slaughter his own people, his fans have praised him as a champion of anti-imperialism as well as Arab and African nationalism. This is despite the fact that Gaddafi is characterized as a dictator who is ruthless. Number 4. Benito Mussolini. The 29th of July, 1883 to the 28th of April, 1945, Benito Mussolini between the years 1922 and 1943, Benito Mussolini ruled Italy as the country's dictator. In light of the fact that he is widely regarded as one of the most influential persons in the development of fascism as a political ideology, he has been given the nickname douche of fascism. Between the years 1925 and 1927, Mussolini, in his capacity as Prime Minister of Italy, gradually destroyed nearly all constitutional and customary limits on his power, effectively constructing a police state. This was the beginning of Mussolini's true dictatorship. In addition to this, Mussolini is well known for his role in dragging Italy into the catastrophe that was the Second World War. He did this by supporting Hitler's Germany, and he later adopted the viewpoints of the Third Reich on a variety of issues. In a previous statement, Putin expressed his willingness to easily sacrifice 500,000 barbaric Slavs for 50,000 Italians. In spite of the fact that Mussolini is depicted with a clean-shaven face when he was at the height of his power, he was known to have a mustache when he was younger. This was most likely the first impetus for his desire to restore the Roman Empire. Number 3. Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro was born in August of 1926. After a military intervention in 1959, Fidel Castro was able to successfully remove Fulgencio Batista from his position as Cuba's leader. Since then, Castro has kept Cuba under his leadership. Under the guise of transferring his responsibilities to his brother Raúl, he resigned from his position in power in 2006, citing his deteriorating health as the reason. Castro is such a contentious and divided person in the globe that his fans hail him as a hero of anti-imperialism, humanitarianism, socialism, and environmentalism. On the other hand, his adversaries view him as a dictator who has overseen repeated violations of human rights. Numerous individuals and organizations all over the world, such as Nelson Mandela, Hugo Chavez, and Evo Morales, have been substantially impacted by his example in terms of their political beliefs and practices. Along the same lines as Mussolini, Castro is not a mustachioed tyrant for life. After gaining power in Cuba, Castro made the decision to grow a beard instead of a mustache. In the past, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, has explored exposing him to a chemical that would cause the hairs on his beard to fall out, so robbing him of the respect of the Cuban people. This strategy has shown to be effective for him. Number 2. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was the undisputed ruler of the former Soviet Union. He was also a significant figure in the Second World War and is considered to be one of the most ruthless dictators in history, second only to our number 1 entry. At least 10 million people lost their lives as a result of Stalin's reign, 6 million of whom were killed by starvation and 4 million of whom died from other causes. A number of historians have proposed that the number of dead could go as high as 20 million. Numerous towns, villages, and cities were renamed after Stalin, which contributed to the formation of a cult of personality within the Soviet Union. He embraced illustrious titles such as Coryphaeus of Science, Father of Nations, Brilliant Genius of Humanity, Great Architect of Communism, and Gardener of Human Happiness, and he assisted in rewriting the history of the Soviet Union in order to give him a more major role in the revolution that occurred in 1917. While everything was going on, he insisted, with some degree of skepticism, that he should be remembered for the extraordinary modesty that is characteristic of seriously great people. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. From the 20th of April in 1889 until the 30th of April in 1945. Throughout the entirety of human history, Adolf Hitler is without a doubt the most heinous dictator that has ever lived. Hitler managed to become the dictator of Nazi Germany from 1933 until 1945, despite the fact that his mustache, to be quite honest, leaves a lot to be desired regarding its appearance. As a result of Hitler's desire to build a new order of German Aryan hegemony in Europe, the Second World War broke out, which ultimately resulted in the deaths of over 50 million people. His method of nation-building was based on the idea that all subordinates should be completely obedient to their superiors. He envisioned the organization of the government as a pyramid, with himself at the very top as the unquestionable leader. His method of leadership consisted of issuing contradictory commands to his subordinates and putting them in positions where their duties and responsibilities overlapped with those of others. He did this in order to give the impression that the stronger one do the job, as he put it. In order to consolidate and enhance his own power, Hitler used this strategy to cultivate a culture of mistrust, competitiveness, and internal strife among his subordinates under his command. It seems appropriate to offer Auden's epitaph on a tyrant to the most vicious of all the dictators on this list, despite the fact that the poem might be applied to any of the dictators on this list. Perfection, of a kind, was what he was after, and the poetry he invented was easy to understand. He knew human folly like the back of his hand, and was greatly interested in armies and fleets. When he laughed, respectable senators burst with laughter, and when he cried, the little children died in the streets. And there you have it. The top 10 mustaches that left a harsh impact on modern history. These leaders, with their iconic facial hair, have left indelible marks on the world, often through brutal and tyrannical means. If you found this video intriguing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most compelling stories. Let us know in the comments which mustache dictator surprised you the most, and if there are any other historical figures you'd like us to cover. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.